Welcome to the Smarter Driver Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rick August, and here we're going to get you on the road to becoming a safer, smarter driver. And no, my degree is not in driving. My degree, in fact, is in legal history, which many of you know is the study of policing, courts, and prisons. My expertise is in policing as it relates to traffic. Here, we're going to look at the fundamental conflict of traffic, which is collisions versus congestion. And we're going to look at the arena of social driving, the challenges you face as a driver, the challenges you face when getting a license or starting a career as a truck or bus driver. The car's all gassed up, we're ready to go. Let's get started. Hi there, Smart Driver. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about 8 reasons, there's the number 8 reasons that you will fail a driver's test. So we're going to give you all the information that you need to be successful on your driver's test first time. Another thing that I want to talk to you about tonight, as you know, I have been doing shorts. I started TikTok and it's been successful. We just passed 5,000 subscribers on the platform, and as well, we have over 1 million views on our videos. So it's been really, really successful, this enterprise of doing the shorts. I also put them up on YouTube in the morning and Facebook as well, so you can find those shorts and have a look at them. One of the things that has come to light with the TikTok videos, I'm getting a lot more feedback and comments and engagement on the TikTok videos. I don't know what it was about YouTube, but there seemed to be a time when comments just somewhat stopped on YouTube, and maybe it's something I'm doing. I'm not asking for comments, or people just feel that the channel is so big that we're not going to get back to you. But we definitely try and answer as many comments as we can. We try to get to everybody. One of the things that I would like to stress in terms of driving is consistency, being consistent in everything you do, developing habits when you're driving that are going to keep you safe, that you don't even have to think about it. For example, the one pet peeve of mine in terms of teaching people to be safer, smarter drivers, because I put up a number of videos and people are like, oh, you don't have to shoulder check in that situation. Every time you change directions of the vehicle, any time that you move the vehicle sideways, you need to shoulder check. You must shoulder check. If you just develop that habit that every time that you move the vehicle sideways or you change directions of the vehicle, that you shoulder check in the direction that you're going, then you don't have to think about it after a while. You just do it out of habit, and it takes 3 months to develop the habits that are going to keep you safer when you're driving. And when you're selective, you say, oh, for example, I don't have to shoulder check in this situation. That's when you're going to get into trouble. I can almost guarantee it, because something unpredictable is going to happen in that situation when you don't check. And it's things on the roadway that are unpredictable that are going to cause you to crash. And you don't have to shoulder check to be checking for another car. It could be other road users that are there. Cyclists, kids on scooters and skaters, motorcycle riders, other vulnerable road users. Bothers me when people come back and say, oh, you don't have to shoulder check in this situation or that situation. And it should give you pause as smart drivers here on the channel, learning how to drive, learning how to pass your driver's test and be safer, smarter drivers, because these are the people on the road that are driving in a goofy fashion, are going to do something goofy, and they may do it around you. So you need to implement skills, techniques, and habits that are going to keep you safe. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month or next year, but in 5 years, that's when it's going to keep you safe. That's when it's going to prevent you from crashing. And that's what we're trying to do here. Habits and skills and techniques and abilities that are going to keep you safe throughout your driving career. Because driving is so, there's so many things that you don't encounter every day when you're driving. For example, turning right on a red light, winter driving conditions. Unless you live in the Northern Hemisphere and get winter, you're not going to have winter driving skills. So that's what I'm talking about. 8 reasons you'll fail your driver's test. First impressions. I cannot say enough about first impressions. You do not get an opportunity to make a second impression. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. That's what I was trying to say. Take a shower, brush your hair, show up clean, get your vehicle cleaned out, get it washed, do a pre-trip inspection on your vehicle. Especially in these days of post-COVID, you need to show up with a clean car. If your car is dirty and you have fast food wrappers up to the ankles in the footwells, the examiner is not going to get in your vehicle. So know that for the purposes of going down for your driver's test. For those of you new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I was a truck driver through most of the 1990s, driving truck between Ontario, Canada, and the United States. Mostly I drove east of the Mississippi. I did make it out to the western states, California, Nevada, New Mexico, here and there again. But as I said, mostly east of the Mississippi. Became a commercial driving instructor in 1997. I also worked as a driver rehabilitation specialist, working with people with brain injuries, had lost a limb, taught them how to drive with hand controls and whatnot. So I did that work. 2006, I graduated from the University of Melbourne with a doctorate in history. While I was going to university, I drove buses for Greyhound and one of the regional bus lines there as well. And in 2016, I started the YouTube channel and the online business, and it has been wildly more successful than I could have imagined. New video last week. This was the video that actually Tim wanted at Drive Smart BC, was properly moving through an intersection, the proper way to scan and to look and observe intersections to keep yourself safe as you're moving through intersections. And the reason that I put this video up is because 40% of crashes happen at intersections, and at intersections, it's the place where you are most likely to encounter vulnerable road users and have vulnerable road users cross your path of travel. Vulnerable road users are pedestrians, cyclists, motorcycle riders, skaters, kids on scooters, and those types of things. So be very careful at intersections. Reason number 8 for passing a driving test: you are not fluent with the primary controls of the vehicle, the steering wheel, the brake, and the throttle. And if you're driving a manual transmission, the clutch as well. And the reason for this is simply because you haven't had enough practice and you don't know how to properly manipulate the steering wheel, have two hands on the steering wheel for the duration of your test. Your turns are too wide, you wander in your lane, or you're not centered. So there's a lot of stuff going on there that simply says to the examiner that you have not had very much practice, and you need to go back and you need to have much more practice to be successful on passing your driver's test. Reason number 7 for not passing your driver's test is moving right after you make a left-hand turn. And yes, you have to do that. Every state has a sign that says, slower traffic, keep right. And that means you, on a driver's test, you are going to be doing the posted speed limit or the flow of traffic, whichever is less. Therefore, you are going to be the slowest vehicle on the road, and you must drive in the right lane. If you're driving in the left lane for more than a few blocks, you're going to be assigned major demerits, and you may not be successful on passing your driver's test. When you're turning left lane to left lane, right lane to right lane, merging, changing lanes, 2 shoulder checks, mirror checks, all of the skills and abilities and observation tools that you need to have to be successful. You need to communicate effectively with other vehicles. And as I talk about in the video from last week, the position of the vehicle or the position of the road user on the roadway is the number one way that we communicate with other road users. Emergency vehicles, you must come to a complete stop immediately for emergency vehicles on your driver's test. And there's a video, 10 unexpected things that may happen on your driver's test. Have a look at that. I talk about emergency vehicles there in that video. Number 6, you are being too cautious. You are driving below the posted speed limit. You're not going when the gap presents itself on turns. You're not getting the vehicle up to speed. You cannot go slower than the posted speed limit for the purposes of your test. If you do, you are being too namby-pamby and will not be successful on your driver's test. So know that for the purposes of going for your driver's test, you have to be sharp. You have to be getting the vehicle going, and you have to take the opportunity when the opportunity presents itself to turn and move into the gap on the roadway. Number 5, the reason that you will fail your driver's test is you do not observe properly, and shoulder checking is that one thing. Shoulder checking, shoulder checking, shoulder checking. Looking far down the road, monitor your gauges, looking in your rear view mirrors and checking your wing mirrors, the forward scanning pattern. And here's the saying that I say to people who say that they don't have to shoulder check. Not shoulder checking is to driving, is what not checking to see if a weapon is loaded is to gun safety. You would never pick up a handgun or a rifle and not check to see whether it was loaded. Why on any earth would you drive a 2-ton vehicle at speed, move, change direction, move laterally, and not check to see whether there was another road user in your path of travel. Number 4, you're not paying attention to road signs, and those road signs are consistent, and you should be practicing your driving test and practicing for your driver's test in and around the test center. And failing to adjust speed according to signs, you're not merging effectively. Stop signs, you don't know the difference between two-way and four-way stop sign intersections, and there's a lot of difference between two-way stop sign and four-way stop sign intersections. And school zones, if you speed in a school zone for the purposes of your driver's test, it is an automatic fail. Road markings, you need to pay attention to road markings, especially now that they're starting to get road markings repainted on the roadways. They were pretty sketchy there at the end of the winter when the snow melted off. So railway crossings, you need to know those as well, because keep in mind, railroads, whoever, I know I'm going to say railway, some people are going to take umbrage with that, but railways, railroads, one and the same. Railroads are intersections, and you need to scan effectively as you're crossing a railway. If you're driving a manual transmission, know that you cannot change gears going across a railway track. Reason number 3 for failing your driver's test: you strike a fixed object during the Ohio maneuverability test in the state of Ohio, or you strike a cone during parallel parking with cones. There are many DMVs that do parallel parking with cones, so know that. Reversing along a curb, if you back the tire up over the curb, you will fail your driver's test. Parking, oftentimes you have to, well, not often, always, every driving test, you have to back into the parking space of the DMV. And I do encourage you, unless signs prohibit it, do back into the parking space when you show up for your test. If you strike the concrete barrier at the back of the parking space or the fence or whatever is there, that is an automatic fail in your driver's test. And 3-point turns, you want to stop just before the curb. If you hit the curb on the 3-point turn or K turn or Y turn or whatever they're calling it in the state that you're in, that too is an automatic fail in a driver's test. Now, no, hill parking, a smart driver said to me a couple of weeks ago, how is that different from hill parking? Hill parking is different because you're expected to rest the tire against the curb to hold the vehicle in the event that the parking brake fails and the vehicle goes to roll away. It's not going to roll away because the tire is nudged up against the curb. Reason number 2 for failing your driver's test is dangerous action. You block an intersection, you move into an intersection you can't clear, and the traffic light turns red. If the examiner intervenes, and see the video I put up, I think it was 3 weeks ago with Chloe. She went to make a left-hand turn and there was a vehicle coming straight through the intersection. If that happens, and I said to her, you can't go. If the examiner does that, that is an automatic fail on a driver's test. Backing up at an intersection, if you stop too far into the intersection and then back up, that is an automatic fail on a driver's test. And I will say to you, never ever back up at an intersection. I see people do it all the time. They get stopped too late and they're across the pedestrian crosswalk. Don't back up. Just stay there. I know it's embarrassing. Pedestrians will walk around you, but backing up is far more dangerous in an intersection. Come on. I'll just go back to what I said earlier about 40% of crashes happen at intersections. So, insufficient gap when turning, your action causes another road user to take evasive action. And the number one reason that you will fail a driver's test is because you simply don't know what is on the driver's test. You don't know that you have to parallel park with cones, and you show up at the DMV and you have to parallel park with cones. Well, you've never done it. You've only ever practiced off parking off cars. If you're in the state of Ohio, you don't know you have to do the Ohio maneuverability test, and you fail because you get in there and you're like, what the heck is going on? Because trust me, the Ohio maneuverability test is something that you have to practice. You can't just show up and do it. As well, you don't know where the schools are. You speed in a school zone. And any of this, if you're not taking driving lessons with a local driving instructor, hire a local driving instructor to take one practice test, okay? They will take you out, they will take you on the route where you're going to be doing your driving test, and they will show you the nuances, where they do the 3-point turns, where they do parallel parking, and those types of things. So it's the return on investment is absolutely huge. Anson, tips on maintaining speed. I often need a second to look at my speedometer and readjust my speed like that. Anson, your speed control, again, is tied into your forward scanning pattern because you're looking far down the road in checking your center mirror, far down the road, both shoulders, in checking your instrument panel. So your speed control is tied into your observation pattern. So your observation pattern is being Repeat it every 10 to 15 seconds. So every 10 to 15 seconds, you need to be adjusting the speed of your car. So know that for the purposes of your driver's test, that you need to be adjusting your speed every 10 to 15 seconds. 2 weeks ago, on asking smart drivers whether they applied the parking brake when they parked their vehicle, 60% of people did, which I was a little suspect. That seemed a little high for the number of people who are actually applying their parking brake when they're parking their vehicle. And Sam, my friend Sam, who's a driving instructor, said, I only apply the parking brake when I'm parking on a hill. This is what I'm talking about. And I'm calling out my friend Sam, saying that you need to do these things consistently. Need to put on the parking brake every time you park the vehicle. It just becomes a habit. It's something that you do every time you park the vehicle. That way, when you come back, you can be guaranteed that the vehicle is still there because the parking brake is on, because if the transmission lets go for whatever reason, and even if you're not on a hill, if somebody hits your vehicle, for example, then it's not going to roll away because there's a clip here that I've made a GIF out of where that's what happens. Is the vehicle's parked on the hill, another vehicle comes along, strikes the parked car, and then it simply just rolls away down the hill. So that's why you need to put on the parking brake every time you park the vehicle. And as well, for automatic transmissions, when you put the vehicle into park, it is really hard on that pawl, that little clicker thing in the transmission, when all of the weight of the vehicle is on it. That is not what the park in the automatic transmission is designed to do. It's simply to lock out the transmission. It's not to hold the car. And a lot of people think that because they called it park, that they don't have to apply the parking brake. And that's simply not true. You need to apply the parking brake every time you park the vehicle, and you need to develop that habit. It's the same thing with shoulder checking. You need to develop that habit. You need to be consistent in the habits, skills, and abilities that you develop and use every day when you're driving. Mallory, make sure you use your turn signals every time you turn the corner. And yes, and that is excellent what Mallory just said and just reminded me. That goes with the same thing as what I'm talking about in terms of parking brakes. That's what I'm talking about in terms of shoulder checking. Every time that you change directions of the vehicles, activate your turn signal. You're communicating with other traffic about what you're doing, whether you're driving forward or whether you're driving back. And I put up a video about signaling in parking lots, because this is where new drivers get demerits because they don't signal in a parking lot. And a number of people said, oh, it's a private property, you don't have to signal in a parking lot. Okay, it's private property, and according to the law, you don't have to signal in a parking lot. But again, that's not going to keep you safe when you're driving. So when you're in a parking lot, use your turn signals to communicate with other people and with vulnerable road users who are in the parking lot walking around going to the store from their cars, and little kids and those types of things. They know what you are doing. Develop the habit that every time you change directions, you're shoulder checking, and every time that you're changing directions of the vehicle, you are signaling. I cannot stress these skills enough to be consistent and develop the habits. Because as I said, not today, not tomorrow, not next month, but maybe in 5 years, this habit or skill that you have developed is going to prevent you being involved in a crash. I mean, you're in a parking lot at the grocery store and you turn the corner, you don't shoulder check, you don't signal, and you run over a kid that got away from his parents. How are you going to feel about that? You're going to feel pretty terrible. I know that. So, and Tim says here in the province of British Columbia, a parking lot is considered a highway. Thank you for that, Tim. I appreciate that. Joe, this late winter snowstorm in southern Ontario is turning out nasty. OPP tweeted about a serious crash on Highway 401 near London a few hours ago. Yeah, so Joe, you're getting snow again and everybody's going, hey, it's spring, we can put on our summer tires, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, you get snow again, which we do, right? So that's unfortunate. Slow down. Drive according to the conditions of the road, which means winter driving, people, okay? If you've been here on the channel, you're going to do the things that you need to do. You're going to be successful on passing your driver's test. So 4 components of any driving test. First one is space management. You need to stop in traffic so you can see the tires of the vehicle in front making clear contact, which is approximately 1 vehicle length between you and the vehicle in front. stopping at the correct stopping position at controlled intersections, stopping behind the stop line, stop before the crosswalk or crosswalk lines. If those two conditions don't exist, then you need to stop at the edge of the road where the two roads meet, which is just before entering the intersection that you need to do for the purposes of your driver's test. Don't enter an intersection you can't clear. If the traffic is backed up, stay on this side of the intersection until it clears, because if you're in the intersection and the light turns red, you're not going to be successful on your driver's test. You need to have a 2 to 3 second following distance at all times when you're driving. Get the vehicle up to speed as quickly as possible. You're going to use speed control to manage space around your vehicle because, as I say, if you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. So speed, get the vehicle up to speed as quickly as possible. It's going to be either the posted speed limit or the flow of traffic, whichever is less. Communication, you need to communicate effectively with other traffic. The position of your vehicle on the roadway is the number one way that you communicate. It's the same way as other road users are going to communicate. See the video that I put up last week where I talked about a pedestrian that I knew was going to cross the road just by the fact of where they were in relationship to the road and their movement and trajectory. I knew they were going to cross the road. Communication, so lights and signals, and then after that it's going to be, if you're not sure what the other person is doing or road user, eye contact, hand signals, hand gestures, and then observation. You need the forward scanning pattern for the purposes of your driver's test. You need far down the road, in, check your center mirror, in, check your instrument panel, far down the road, check your left mirror, far down the road, and then check your right wing mirror for the purposes of your forward scanning pattern. And again, your forward scanning pattern is what helps you to manage speed when you're driving. It's not a matter if you're going over or under the speed limit a little bit, but you should be adjusting your speed every 10 to 15 seconds in keeping with your scanning pattern. Reversing, you need to do a 360-degree scan, look out through the back window when you're reversing. You can check your mirrors, you can check a backup camera, but you can't use them as your primary line of sight. So that's what you want to do when you're scanning and your observation techniques. So the 4 components of your driver's test are space management, speed management, observation, and communication. And if you can do those 4 things, you're going to be great. So position of your vehicle on the roadway, lights and signals, horn. Use your horn sparingly because in this day and age, it's seen as a sign of aggression. But if you're not sure what somebody else is doing, they're sitting at a green light for whatever reason, just give a little tap on your horn and they'll get. Expert gamer, can you brake check people? Gamer, again, that comes back to the idea of why on any planet would you do that? Why would you do that? Risk your own safety and the safety of somebody else? Brake checking somebody is almost as dangerous as taking a loaded weapon and pointing it at your head. It's that dangerous because it often happens at speed. You brake check the person behind you. You don't know whether that person's going to get stopped or not. And that person may plow into the back of you and then you careen off into another vehicle. No, please don't ever do that. Anson, you're very welcome. Robert, if you're in the middle of the intersection, you would have to get out of the intersection. Yes, you do. If the light turns yellow or the light turns red, then you have to clear the intersection for sure. Mallory, I also like ferry boats. I've done a couple here in the Maritimes. Absolutely awesome. I also took the ferry. Speaking of ferries, I took the ferry from the Isle of Lewis back to Scotland, and it was fairly calm when I did it, but I met these people when I was on Lewis, and they said that when they drove off the ferry the day before that there was 18 inches of water on the car deck and they were driving out through water. And later I met a woman who was living in Stirling, and she said that she flew to the Isle of Lewis where she was from and where her family lived. She said she never took the ferry. She said, because it's the North Atlantic. She says it's one of the roughest ferries you'll ever be on. And same thing with the Port of Basque ferry. Going to Newfoundland, I talked to a person and they said his dad was on the ferry and they were out for 36 hours because it was so rough they couldn't get into the harbor. So there are great stories about riding ferries, but most of the time, 95% of the time, it's going to be okay on the ferries. I mean, I don't think I've ever been on a rough BC ferries going from Tawasin into Swartz Bay, but I've talked to people who've been on the Nanaimo ferry and they said it is absolutely crazy rough. A couple of times they've been on the ferry. So yeah, there are times every now and again. I haven't had that excitement yet. Darnell, can a person still pass their road test if you show the driving instructor that you made it? If you're a defensive driver, make a few mistakes on the test. Darnell, just keep in mind that you're going for a pass. You're not going for perfection, okay? You're just going for a pass. And if you're unsure about the skills and abilities that you need to pass your driver's test, I strongly encourage you to take a driving lesson with an instructor. That will really, really help you out in terms of getting prepared for your driver's test. Claire, can one drive on a painted island if there's a slow construction truck in front of you, or wait for the examiner to instruct? Claire, there's really no exception for driving on a painted island. If there's a vehicle in front of you, then you just need to wait for that vehicle to clear. It's very unlikely there's going to be a construction vehicle, but obviously there are exceptions, but not very often in terms of driving on a painted island. Frosty, what's the difference between a yield sign and a stop sign? The difference is that for the purposes of a driver's test, you don't have to come to a complete stop for a yield sign, but you still need to give way to all of the road users and only proceed when the way is clear. Nipton, do you think the examiner decision is correct all the time? Blue, 9.5 times out of 10, the examiners are right, okay? And unfortunately, sometimes students that should pass don't pass because something goes wrong in the driving environment when they're out there, and students that shouldn't pass the driver's test because everything went swimmingly on their driver's test. But as I said, most of the time, driving examiners make the right decision and do the right thing in terms of deciding whether somebody's going to get their license or not. Jazz, 21, I live in Cali. I was scared of driving and it's taken me 2 years to learn. Your videos has helped me overcome my fear and I feel safer in Los Angeles rush hour traffic. My test is in June. You're going to do absolutely awesome, my friend. All the very best. With the Smarter Driver podcast, we provide the stepping stones towards your success in driving. We empower you to achieve your goals and aspirations as they relate to getting your first license, becoming a safer, smarter driver, or starting a career as a truck or bus driver. If you're just starting out and working towards getting your first license, be sure to check out the Smarter Driver course package down in the description. Guaranteed to pass first time. As well, if there's something about driving that just really irks you and you'd like to get it off your chest, please leave a comment. I'm your host, Dr. Rick August. Thanks very much for listening. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day. Bye now.